my fellow readers. Today I'm going to be doing this video and talking about this book only because I said I would. Today I'm going to be talking about These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. And I mentioned in a previous video with a book also titled These Violent Delights that I was going to be reading this book and would talk about it because they had both appealed to me, and it was interesting that they had the same title and were only released like I think 1 or 2 months apart. And I mean, they're quite different, so there's no problem there. But it's just interesting to me that we had These Violent Delights released in the fall and just seeing how they did. Obviously this one had more appeal. It's a YA fantasy. It's a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, but it's set in 1920 Shanghai. What to say about this book? I will say overall, I don't know. I didn't love this book. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. I couldn't engage with it as much as I had hoped that I would. I don't know what it was that kept me from fully engaging with the book. I really don't know what it was. Because I thought when I first was reading about it, okay, this is a retelling of Romeo and Juliet. That's cool. I love Shakespeare. It's set in the 1920s. That's cool. I think that a lot of interesting stuff was happening in the 20s, and all over the world, not just, my center of the universe. That sounded weird. But in the whole gang issues in Shanghai, I found that all intriguing. So I'm like, what was it about it that I didn't really get? And I don't know. Just something, it didn't capture me the way I was hoping that it would. So much like with Romeo and Juliet, but with a, bigger twist or bigger threat to them. Juliet is the daughter, and I think heiress, whatever you would call it, of the Scarlet Gang, one of the huge gangs in Shanghai that are sort of controlling the city. And her rival is Roma, and he is one of the leaders of the opposing gang syndicate, the White Flowers. And if I remember correctly, they kind of had a thing before, but stuff happened, and that definitely kind of leads into these problems that are currently causing the problems between the two gangs. But I mean, other than that, it's also just the fact of supremacy and who wants to run the show. And yeah, it just basically deals with that, and characters and people. I don't know how else to say that it was really like, okay, here's very much Romeo and Juliet, but respun. With perhaps higher stakes and perhaps twists on other characters, some of which I didn't mind. I actually thought there were some character stories that I was semi-invested in, and almost would have enjoyed it more if the main story focused on their dealings than on Romeo and Juliet. That kind of would be like, is the fabulous Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which was a great, let's pull these two random characters from Shakespeare's Hamlet and give them their own show. And yes, it was absurd, but so good. And I kind of wish they would do that with Romeo and Juliet. Like, take those other characters that exist in sort of the background that maybe we just see appear and die, and give them the foreground, give them the main story. I didn't think I'd say that because I mean, I've read and watched other Romeo and Juliet retellings, and I don't mind that aspect. I wish that I could define what it was that didn't engage me as much as I had hoped. I almost feel that it could have been that I felt personally like I was just plopped down into this. And maybe the story wasn't linear enough for me. Because, you know, like there's when certain books, like they do a thing where they'll keep mentioning something kind of offhand, but they don't come right out and tell you because they want to like build up to a big reveal. But you're kind of just like, I'm just lost, and now I'm just stuck on that one thing that you won't just explicitly say. Maybe that was sort of it too. I don't know. I wish I could explain it in a better way, but I didn't love it. Again, it's not bad, and I think other people will probably really get into it and they'll love this. But for me, I was just like, it's maybe like a 3. I don't care. For me, it had similar vibes to another work that I would actually rather read the other work, and that's Jade City by Fonda Lee. I really love Jade City and Jade War. I like following like that family. And again, this is another case of where it's like there's crime and it's fantasy, like a crime family and fantasy. But I felt more engaged to the storyline and characters than I did in These Violent Delights. Which makes me a little bit sad. I hate when that happens. But that is definitely an issue that I dealt with this book. Again, I don't know why. I don't think the book is bad. It's just for whatever reason it didn't ensnare me. And that happens. You know, that does happen with books. It could have been the wrong book at the wrong time. Or it could be if I picked it up at some other time. I can't remember what I was reading at the time. It's been a while since I read this one. And I felt really bad that I hadn't addressed it at all. So I don't know. It could be that maybe what I was reading around that same time kind of threw me off from getting invested in it. It could be one where when the second book is released, maybe I'll go back and revisit this one and really like it and then want to go on to the second one. I'm not sure, but at this point, it was just kind of a mid-read for me. And it's a little sad, but it happens. You know, not every book is for every reader. I definitely would not discourage anybody else from trying it because I don't think it was a bad book. I think it just didn't connect with me in the way that I was hoping and at that time. And that's happened before where I've like actually given books, not like bad reviews, because I don't really do like terrible reviews about anything unless it really is terrible, because that does happen. That sounds wrong, but you know, for me, like a bad review is a 2. And there's very few books I've read that warrant the 2. So again, I'll say for me, I feel like it just wasn't the right time for me and this book to meet. And maybe when the second book comes out, I'll give it a try. Again, there has been times, actually, I had a very difficult time with The Six of Crows the first time that I read it. So, like I said, it does happen where I'll revisit the book and then I'll be much more engaged in the storyline and the characters, and we'll go on to read the rest of it and really love it. And I feel like that could potentially happen here. Like maybe it just didn't hit me at the right time. Maybe I couldn't give it my all as a reader. And so, yeah, I would be willing, especially if I hear good things about the second book, I would be willing to give it another try, a reread. I would be willing to, yes. But I will say that at this point, it was kind of mid for me, and I'm not really thinking about it. I like stories that stay with me and that I think about. Like, there's so much in Jade City that I could, like, it's still in my mind and I'm thinking about, and it's been months now since I read it. And I didn't get that with this book, and I was kind of hoping. And actually, there are still things with the other These Violent Delights that have stuck with me and I'm still thinking about and am sort of engrossed with, like, wow, that really happened in that book, that I didn't get here. It was just like, meh, yeah, it's retelling of Romeo and Juliet. Okay. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens when the second book is released and whether it pulls me into this world. Because, like I said, I'm always up for giving things a second chance and trying them again. And this was still okay by me. I didn't hate it. So we'll see what happens in the future. That's probably all that I wanted to talk about. In case you were waiting for my thoughts on the second These Violent Delights, there they are. And that is it for this video. Until next time, bye.